Okay. Hello, my name is Paul DeWitt, lawyer with the Nashville Bar Association. Today is Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. I am at the offices of the Nashville Bar Association and am going to interview Carlton Lewis, a prominent Nashville attorney and judge. This interview is being conducted for the Legal History Project of the Nashville Bar Association. Uh,
Paul, how are you today?
Thank you so much for coming up, Carlton.
I'm excited and looking forward to this.
All right. Could you please state your full name?
Yes, Paul, my name is Carlton Lewis. I am, of course, a member of the Nashville Bar. I am 65 years of age. I will be 66 years old in December of this year. Native of Knoxville, Knox County, Tennessee. Grew up one of five siblings. I've got two other brothers and two sisters, as well as myself. We grew up, our parents, Charles Lewis is now deceased. My mother, Rosa Mallory Lewis, recently deceased, but my father and my mother were both children of sharecroppers in Alabama. My father was from the Athens, Decatur, Alabama area.
And Northern Alabama.
Northern Alabama, exactly. And my mother was more central Alabama. She was from Talladega County. And of course, a lot of people will know Talladega for the NASCAR racetrack,
right,
which is big industry or hub of industry in that county and in that region. But my father, 4 years older than my mother, I used to always laugh because their birthdays were sort of.
What were their birthdays?
Yeah, my father's birthday was November 28th, 1924. And my mother's birthday was November 24, 1928. So being close to Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving was always the big holiday.
Sure.
At
two
home.
Birthdays.
Yeah, two. Yeah. I think they're both Sagittarius. Everybody says, well, that doesn't work, but I don't think they paid any of that any attention.
Okay. And you yourself were born in 1958?
That is correct. I was born December 24th of 1958.
Christmas Eve, baby.
Yeah, I like to think I was the best birthday present my mother ever got, but yes. I don't think my brothers or sisters ever agreed with that.
So you were one of five children, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And I believe your oldest brother, actually, Dwight Lewis,
yes,
was born to a different mother.
Different mother, yes. Dwight was born 1948, so he's 10 years and a few months older than I am. And his mother, Helen Booker Lewis, died tragically in 1950. Dwight had just turned 2 years of age, and there was a house fire, some kind of accidental fire, and she suffered severe injuries and died as a result of those injuries in 1950. Dwight and his father, him being, of course, an only child at that time, lived with his mother's sister and her husband until 1955, when his father married Rosa Mallory, and then the remainder of the family was completed.
So your dad's second wife, Rosa, had four children of her own.
Correct.
Okay.
2 boys and 2 girls.
And where do you fall in the line there?
I am the second of her 4 children. I've got an older sister, Charlene, who is 2 years older than I am, and then a younger sister, Angela, who is 4 years younger, and then Adrian, who's the youngest of all, is actually about 13 years younger than I am. So,
by the way, Dwight Lewis, many of you may know, that was for many years a reporter for the Tennessean and columnist for the Tennessean. Right. By the way, what is he doing?
Dwight is retired from the Tennessean and still writing. He has authored one book since his retirement on the Tiger Bells of Coach Ed Temple at Tennessee State University. And he is now completing a project on African Americans in Appalachia.
Interesting.
And I've been up there on one trip with him. Very, very, very interesting.
Interesting.
The people, the area, everything is just peaceful and resolute.
Want to get back to your parents for a minute. So they were both born in Alabama,
yes,
although they were born in the 1920s.
Right, yes.
They came to Tennessee together, or
no, separately.
Okay.
Yeah, my father was a Marine, discharged from the Marine Corps, and initially, I think, resided in Chattanooga and then moved to Knoxville and went to work in Knoxville. And I don't know the year of that. My mother graduated high school in Talladega County, and then she moved to Knoxville to attend Knoxville College. And she is a 1950 graduate of Knoxville College. So they met sometime after they were both in Knoxville.
But they were not married till 55, I believe. After,
that is correct.
I guess
Dwight's mother had passed away in 1950. Right.
They met in Knoxville after her.
Yes.
Okay. And I suppose it was they were prominent in the African American community in Knoxville at that time. And did they both have college degrees, or your mother did?
My mother did, and my father attended, and as far as I know, completed what was then Tuskegee Institute in Tuskegee, Alabama. Now, of course, Tuskegee University. And certainly education was very, very important to both of them, and it was stressed to all of us.
And your mother, I guess I'll venture to guess that it was probably unusual for a female to have a college degree in those days, or was it not? I guess many of them went into teaching.
Yeah, and I think it was very, very common for women to have degrees in teaching. My mother was actually a biology major, and I can remember when I was in high school struggling somewhat with biology. She found it so unusual that I would have a difficult time with it, but she was a great help. But in fact, I learned probably about the time that my mother passed away, I had 2 or 3 other teachers, or there were 2 or 3 other teachers that I knew, but maybe didn't necessarily have as my own teachers. They were all college classmates, but we were never told that for whatever reason. But it was interesting, and looking back on it, I thought, boy, now I can understand why they were such good friends with my mother.
But your dad, I believe, worked for many years in the ceramic tile business,
right?
And then later for the Postal Service.
Correct. Yeah, worked for a small family-owned business that did ceramic tile, bathrooms, kitchens, home design types of things, and eventually went to work for the Postal Service. Probably in about 1970, maybe, and was there until he passed away, retired, and then shortly thereafter passed away in 1990.
Okay. And I knew it was a very close family growing up. And so growing up in Knoxville in the 60s as a boy and young man, what was it like? I mean, going to school and uh, any fond memories of any personal fun things that you did or the family did growing up?
We were close. The community was close knit. I would say the church was the center of the community and the center of life.
Social life as well as religious
Social
life.
and religious, exactly. I can remember, and I always laugh about my best friend's mother, and my best friend and I his family and my family always lived one block apart, and the families remain very, very close to this day. But his mother always managed to get every child in the neighborhood enrolled in Vacation Bible School.
Oh, yeah.
And back then, Vacation Bible School was really a week-long Mother's Day out, yeah, because it was during the day.
Summertime.
It was summertime, yeah. And during the day. And not only would she get us all registered, but she had a station wagon, so she drove us all, and we'd go to different churches. Just, the churches had their schedules sort of staggered. So for about 4 straight weeks, we were in Vacation Bible School. And it was a lot of fun. But, church was the center of the social and the spiritual life. Little League sports, all the way up through high school, very, very important. And most boys, myself included, involved in Little League baseball, sure, and whatever sport was in season. And the families attended. The
come to your games
was for your parents and your brothers and sisters to be there. And so it was, that part of it was a lot of fun.
I believe you started at Mount Zion AME kindergarten, and you would have been, what, 5 years old or something?
I think I was probably 4
years old.
And correct, I went to Mount Zion kindergarten, and I'm thinking I stayed for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and before I dropped out of kindergarten.
Okay.
And
I want to quickly go through your education and then go back. Okay. After kindergarten, Eastport Elementary School through the 4th grade.
That is correct.
Then Fair Garden Elementary in the 5th and 6th grade.
Correct.
Then Chilhowie Elementary in the 7th and 8th grade.
Yes.
And then Holston High School from, I guess, the 9th to the 12th grade.
9th through 12th grade. Correct.
Okay. All those are in Knoxville.
Yes.
Could you tell us about any teachers that had a big influence on you? Name 2 or 3 maybe that at any particular time that really had a great influence on you.
I will. My 4th grade teacher in particular, Mrs. Macklin, was just a wonderful, wonderful teacher in her own right. But Ms. Macklin was a first cousin to Senator Avon Williams, who represented a part of North Nashville in the General Assembly for many, many years.
State senator for many years.
Correct.
Yes.
And she was also a first cousin. They both were first cousins with U.S. Supreme Court Associate Justice Thurgood Marshall. And while she did not brag, she was obviously very proud to let her class know.
Yes.
And
this was Miss Macklin.
Ms. Macklin, my 4th grade teacher, very, very wonderful. And I think her sole mission in life was to inspire all of her students to achieve as much as they possibly could.
So she was one of your most inspirational teachers.
Yes, most definitely.
I believe that you didn't grow up among lawyers, or maybe didn't really know any lawyers growing up. And yet
did not know any. I knew of one African-American attorney in Knoxville.
Who was that?
I don't know that I ever met him. His name was Carl Cowan. And I think he was very prominent. I knew two or three physicians growing up, but no lawyers at all.
That's interesting. And were any of your teachers or people you knew from the community or church inspirations to you to become a lawyer growing up? I believe maybe at Chilhowie or.
Excuse me. I had a teacher, I think it was my eighth grade teacher, seventh or eighth grade teacher at Chilhowie, who taught social studies, and he was a very, very innovative teacher.
What was his name?
Jim Stamper. Mm-hmm. Actually, Dr. Jim Stamper. And I'll talk a little bit more about him, okay. But he was one of those that used a variety of sources and resources to keep our interest. And we learned about state and local politics as well as national politics. And I remember at some point realizing a lot of the political figures that we learned about were also lawyers. And something during that seventh and eighth grade period just sort of stuck with me. I developed an interest in lawyers, and held that interest, or that interest held me.
Did you pretty much know, or at least strongly believe, your future career would be in law, or did that only come about later? Or
I think I had that hope or that idea through high school, and then I think it was reinforced in college.
So moving on, your high school days were at Holston High School.
Holston High School, correct.
You enrolled there in about what, 1972?
1972,
as
right.
A freshman, yes, and graduated in 76.
1976, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, I'm just curious, I assume by the early mid-70s, integration had pretty much taken hold. And so just give us an idea of what it was like compared to maybe what it had been in your earlier school days, as far as desegregation of the schools, as far as you could experience.
When I was at Chilhowie, well, let me go back further. Eastport and Fairgarden were predominantly African-American. I think Eastport was 100% African-American enrollment. Fairgarden, fifth and sixth grade, is probably 96, 98% African-American. And it wasn't until I got to what we would now call middle school at Chilhowie, seventh and eighth grade, the enrollment was overwhelmingly white. And I never noticed or detected any differences. And I think primarily because the teachers just took their classes, they taught their classes, treated everybody the same, and I never felt any difference or distinction. It wasn't until I got to Holston High School in 1972 that I began to notice different treatment, primarily by students, not really faculty. And it was somewhat of a shock to me because I had never experienced anything.
So there was sort of a subtle or not so subtle,
for the most part,
condescending attitude, a hostile attitude.
Subtle. You stay on that side, we stay on this side, sort of, And I think it was. There were four high schools in the cluster where I went to high school. There was Holston High School, Fulton High School, Central High School, and Austin East. And the enrollment at Austin East was predominantly African-American. Fulton High School had done a very, very, very good job of blending the races. It was a true reflection of the community. Central High School, I think, was ahead of Holston as far as integrating Black students into the student body, and unfortunately, Holston sort of lagged behind. And the outward indication of what was going on at those other three schools, in my opinion, was reflected in their athletics.
Tell us about how sports, for good or ill, affected how the overall relationships were.
I'll start with Fulton High School. And I don't know what the racial makeup at Fulton High School was, but they had very, very good competitive football, basketball, and baseball programs. Central High School was one of the top high school football programs in the region. Austin East, very, very, very good basketball program, won a state championship, I think, in 1977 or 78. But the athletics tended to bring all students together. And Holston lagged behind. They became competitive as an integrated program after the other three had moved up.
By the way, your own enrollment at Holston, was that determined by proximity geographically or busing?
Pretty much residence. I was probably maybe a little bit closer geographically to Austin East. That may have been the school where I was zoned, but Holston was where my father wanted my older sister and myself to attend.
Okay. So you graduated from Holston in 76?
Yes.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, how big a graduating class would there have been if you have it?
I'm thinking we probably had about, I'm going to say, between 80 and 100 students.
Oh, okay. That would be pretty small, actually. I would have thought.
Yeah, Central High School probably had the largest graduating class at that time.
All right. Any particular fond memories of things in high school, or friends or teachers or stuff going on that you want to talk about? Or
had two good friends in high school. They were probably my two closest friends throughout high school. They remain two of my closest friends to this day.
Who are they?
Steve Bateman and Steve Kirkland. And I grew up. We hung out together all through high school. Steve Bateman and I were actually, after 4 years of college or high school, we roomed together for 4 years in college. Steve Kirkland went immediately into the workforce after high school, still lives in Knoxville. Steve Bateman lives over in Greer, South Carolina. But we all played basketball together. We all visited in each other's homes. We were all welcomed by each other's parents. And it was just a fun time.
Y'all still stay in touch?
We stay in touch. Steve Bateman and I we'll all stay in constant contact, either email. Occasionally, we've been able to get together in person, but it's a strong bond.
So to have that bond still strong after 40, 50 years is...
And you mentioned that, and I don't even think about the fact that it's been that long. It's just so natural for us.
Off to college, fall of 76. I believe you enrolled at Carson
Newman College, correct.
I believe by then it was no longer a 2-year school. I want to say that Carson Newman was a junior college or 2-year college at some earlier stage. But by the time you enrolled, it was a full 4-year.
4-year preacher's college.
Tell us about why did you decide on Carson Newman, and how did you come about attending there?
My
And where is
yeah,
Carson?
Carson Newman is in Jefferson City, Tennessee, which is about 30 miles northeast of Knoxville.
Okay.
My sister, who is 2 years older than I am, was at UT Knoxville, University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And I lived in Knoxville, had sold concessions during football season a couple of years over at UT. It was just such a huge, huge institution that I could easily see myself getting swallowed up.
You wanted a smaller.
I wanted a smaller environment. Carson Newman presented that. I think my father sort of dissuaded me. I don't think he had any reason to think that I had planned to go into the ministry. And Carson Newman was at that time, it was affiliated with the Southern Baptist Convention. They subsequently removed themselves from Southern Baptist Convention leadership and truly began to thrive. But I enjoyed my time at Carson Newman. I was there 4 years, made some wonderful, wonderful friends. I think I got an education that is second to none.
And what did you major in?
I was a history and political science major. And I think by the university being small, I'm going to say in my major courses, especially my junior and senior year, more than 10 or 12 students in a class was very, very large. But we got individual attention, one-on-one relationships with professors, easy to develop, and it just was good for me.
Did you work during the school year, or were you a full-time student?
I was a full-time student, and I worked from on the side, primarily weekends, just for
spending money.
Gotcha. Exactly.
Okay. All right. Did you, by say the time you graduated, or maybe before that, have a crystallizing idea? Had the idea crystallized in your head, if that's a word, that you wanted to go into law, or are you still undecided about that?
Absolutely certain that that would be the career that I would pursue.
Okay. And by 1980-81, you are going to enroll in Nashville School of Law.
Correct.
How did you come? Did you have friends in Nashville or connections in Nashville? How did you?
My older brother Dwight was here in Nashville, and some other family, but primarily it was Dwight.
Okay. He had been, I guess, at the Tennessean for a number of years.
Right. He actually came to Nashville in 1965 to attend Tennessee State University. Of course, back then it was Tennessee A&I University, but he came in 1965, went to work for the Tennessean upon his graduation.
And settled in Nashville.
Had settled in Nashville.
So by the time you were finishing college, he was well settled in Nashville.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So. And was his living here an influence on your decision to go to law school here? Or?
It was. Okay. Yeah, that was a big part of it. I did not really want to incur a large student debt for loans. I knew of the Nashville School of Law and just decided that's what I would do.
Just to correct the historical, I believe back then it was the YMCA.
Correct, YMCA night ball school. Met at the downtown YMCA, and actually they had moved from the original YMCA site to the site there on the corner of Church and...
Well, that's it. Okay. The old downtown Y was on 7th Avenue North,
right?
Yes. And that's where they held the law school. But by the time you enrolled there, they were in a different downtown location.
Correct. Yeah, just I guess that's just south of the Avon Williams TSU campus.
Okay. All right. And you enrolled there in 80, 80 or 81?
1981. I sat out a year between undergrad and starting law school.
As did I. I remember which.
My mother just absolutely did not want me to sit out a year. She, for whatever reason, thought if you sit out a year, you'll get accustomed to not going to school and you'll never go back. So,
do you wish now you had started straight out of college, or does it make any difference?
No, I think it made a difference. I think a year's growth and maturity made a big difference for me.
In my case, I wish actually I'd stayed out 2 or 3 more years before starting law school, but in any event. All right. So and the law school was, and I believe still is, a 4-year program.
It is. Yes, when I started, there were classes on Monday night and Thursday night, and pretty much required courses, no such thing as electives. The curriculum was preset.
And the faculty was and still is composed of local attorneys and judges.
Yes, practicing attorneys, sitting judges.
Who were some of the professors / lawyers / judges who you took classes under, and tell us a little bit about their influence on you at that time?
First year, one of the required courses was criminal law and procedure, and it was taught by then District Attorney Tom Shriver, later became Judge Shriver. Just an absolute wealth of legal knowledge, information, just in my opinion, a wonderful teacher.
He taught criminal law and procedure.
Criminal law and procedure, yes.
Gotcha.
Second year, one of the foundational classes that any lawyer absolutely must have is civil procedure.
Yes.
And I was fortunate enough to have Mr. Douglas Fisher as my civil procedure instructor. Mr. Fisher was just a phenomenal trial lawyer, a phenomenal lecturer. Mr. Fisher had served as legal counsel to Governor Frank Clements in the years before I started law school.
And he had been actually an assistant district attorney in his early career, I later found out.
Yes, but
Doug Fisher.
Just a phenomenal, fantastic individual.
He taught civil procedure.
Right. He taught civil procedure. I was fortunate enough, and my class may have been the last class that he taught before he retired from teaching. And fortunately, he remained or became a member of the Board of Trust for the schools. And I think that was just so good because he knew the history of the school. He knew internally what was going on, and I think was just instrumental in moving the school forward.
And while you were in law school, I believe you had a position as a law clerk, maybe at the State Attorney
General's office.
How did that come about, and what kind of work did you do there?
It was just really good fortune. I remember hearing, or someone had told me I was looking for work in the legal field, and somebody said, you need to apply for a law clerk's position at the Attorney General's office. And I did, and I got hired. I was initially hired. The state at that time was involved in a lawsuit with Blue Cross and Blue Shield Insurance regarding payment of nursing home claims. It involved Medicare and Medicaid payments, but I was hired specifically for that particular case. And after about 6 or 8 months, that case settled. And then I went over to the main office, and all the clerks were sort of in a pool. And if a division needed someone, whoever was available would take the assignment. And I got a chance to do another special assignment. One of the jobs of the State Attorney General is to issue opinions to elected legal or elected officials, and we would have to, or the opinions had to be summarized, cataloged, and I was given that assignment and did that pretty much for 2.5, 3 years.
I believe you graduated from law school, and at some point along the line, you came in touch with the public defender's office.
Public defender's office.
How did you get in touch with them? How did that come about?
My wife actually was working at the public defender's office. Yes. She had passed bar exam. She'd passed bar exam and was practicing in the public defender's office. I think she said, public defender's office is going to be looking for a law clerk. And it was one of those deals where I thought, well, let me look into that. I think I had a better opportunity of going into practice at the public defender's office.
Let me back up just a second. Your wife,
Kenitha Sawyers.
How did y'all meet, and when did y'all get married? And
she was ahead of me in law school. We did not attend law school together. She attended the Ohio State University, as they like to say. Yes. And she is a Nashville native.
Yes.
So she had graduated from law school and had returned home to Nashville. And I think we actually met at the law library, or I'm not sure. She was studying for the bar exam. She came home to take the Tennessee bar, and I think we just happened to meet.
Okay, studying for the. She was studying for the bar, but you were still in law school.
Still in law school.
Okay,
and we just met
and sparks flew, I guess.
Relationship developed.
When were y'all married?
We were married in September of 1982.
Okay,
September 11th. 1982.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
And was she already practicing law with the public defender's office, or was she still where?
Actually, I think she may have left the public defender's office. She may have still been there at that time. No, I'm certain now that she had left the public defender's office and had gone to work for some other agency.
Okay. In any event, y'all were married in September of 82. You're still in law school, but eventually you are out, and she's by this time working for the public defender, I suppose. Jim Weatherly, maybe? Or
I was working for Jim Weatherly. Yes, she had left. I think she was working for one of the state boards. I know she worked for the state for a period of time. Then she went into private practice.
Okay. Because I remember having cases with her along about 1983 and 4 DUI cases, but I guess she left the public defender's office soon after.
I think so.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
And then you started.
I started when I graduated from law school in 1985. Took the July bar exam, was not successful with the July bar exam. Had been assured that when I passed the bar exam, I would start practicing with public defender's office. Jim Weatherly had been public defender when I started clerking. Jim left after one term to go into private practice, and he was succeeded by Bill Schulman. And Bill assured me that when I passed the exam, the position was still there.
And indeed, you passed that bar.
I did pass the February 1986 exam. And went into practice immediately at the public defender's office.
And you were there, I believe, for about 5 years.
I think so. Yeah, that's right. So, and until 1991.
Okay. And then in 1991, you left the public defender's office to go into private practice with, is it Petway and Blackshire?
Correct. Yeah. Carlton Petway was one of the outstanding criminal defense attorneys here in Nashville. Carlton had practiced in the U.S. Attorney's Office. In fact, I think he was the first African American attorney in the U.S. Attorney's Office here in the Middle District. Was just a fantastic, well-respected criminal attorney. He and Julian Blackshire and Mr. Blackshire did exclusively civil practice, and just an excellent firm. After Mr. Petway passed away, very untimely.
Yes, he was very young. I want to say he was maybe in his early 50s.
Yeah, 53 or 55 maybe, but way too early. It was after he passed away that I had the opportunity to join that firm, and I stayed there from 1991 until 1998 when I left to become a juvenile court referee or magistrate.
So we'll talk about that in a minute. But so your practice, starting with the public defender in '86, and I guess ending with your appointment as a juvenile court referee in '98, was exclusively in criminal defense, or did you do any civil work?
I did do some civil work, some personal injury work. Personal injury, primarily criminal defense.
All right. Yeah. And if you're a criminal defense lawyer, maybe more then than now, but certainly then, you tried a lot of cases. You were in court a lot. And I don't just mean showing up for a docket call. I mean getting in there and trying cases before juries to verdicts, and stressful. I was a prosecutor. We squared off three times. And I well remember those days as being, they were busy. You were expected to be, both the prosecutors and defense lawyers were expected to be ready to try cases almost at the drop of a hat sometimes.
You're exactly right.
With maybe not as much preparation as you'd like.
Exactly.
But that was the way things were done. I think it's not so much that way now. Tell us about two or three of the more interesting trials you had when you were a criminal defense lawyer.
There are two that come to mind. One was somewhat humorous. The other, maybe not so much, but it had a good ending. The first one was a murder case. It was an unfortunate situation where there was maybe a drug-related shooting. A little 9-year-old boy on a Sunday afternoon after church in a little market buying ice cream was struck by a bullet, struck and killed. I think three or four people, I think, were charged in that incident. My client apparently was the leader of the three individuals. He was the shooter. The case was set for trial. There was really no way that it would settle. We had no defense really to present to the jury, and my client
we'll go ahead and name him. His name was Sean Smith.
Nicknamed Fly. Sean Fly Smith was determined to testify on his own behalf, and I did everything that I could to dissuade him from testifying. We were before Judge Randall Wyatt, who was judge of Division 2 of the criminal court at the time. Judge Wyatt had a hearing outside the presence of the jury to basically notify my client of the possible pitfalls of cross-examination, but my client insisted on testifying, and I had cautioned my client that the prosecutor in that case, now retired Assistant DA Tom Thurman, was quite skilled at the art of cross-examination, and very few people survived his cross-examination.
Tom Thurman prosecuted many of the really high-profile cases in Nashville for many years.
Many years.
Came to have the nickname the Terminator.
The Terminator, you're exactly right. But long story short, it's a week-long trial. My client insists on testifying. He goes through the rigorous cross-examination from Tom Thurman, and I don't know if deflated and defeated accurately describe him, but as he came off the witness stand and was coming back toward counsel table, I saw him clenching his fist, and he mumbled something to the effect of, "I don't appreciate you getting me life."
I actually can confirm that. I was in the courtroom myself just as a spectator.
Okay.
The case was of wide interest to all the district attorneys and other lawyers.
Right.
And I came up there just when I guess he was coming off the witness stand, and I remember him say, "You got me life."
Yeah.
And go ahead.
And he took a swing at me. I mean, he was standing up and I was sitting down.
Yes.
But I anticipated that he was going to do something because our relationship had been rocky, to say the best. It had been rocky the entire time.
Yeah.
But he took a swing at me, and I saw it coming, and I blocked it. And fortunately, the court officers were there, and they subdued him.
Yes, it was dramatic. It was a packed courtroom. A lot of lawyers had come over there to watch the trial, and it was quite dramatic. And a gasp from the courtroom, like nobody had ever seen that before.
Exactly, and I had obviously never experienced anything like that.
But you maintain your composure very admirably.
Yeah, because we still had the jury had to deliberate and return a verdict, and they did return a verdict of guilty of felony murder. The state was not seeking the death penalty in that case, but they were seeking life without possibility of parole,
which required a separate sentencing
hearing. So after he had taken a swing at me, I still had to argue on his behalf that he should not get life without parole. And the jury, for whatever reason, did not give him life without parole.
Right.
You got life with a chance for parole.
You had done the best you could under extremely unusual and very personally stressful circumstances.
Absolutely.
That was one of your more memorable trials.
Yeah.
What year was that?
Boy.
It seemed like it was maybe in the mid to late 90s.
Mid-90s. Yeah. I'm going to say probably 1996.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
State of Tennessee versus Sean Smith. The victim was, I remember, Jeremiah Warfield.
Jeremiah Warfield, just so tragic.
Yeah.
This little 9-year-old boy had been to church earlier that day. He was visiting a cousin. They had gone to the store to get ice cream, and
he was not obviously the target.
Not a target at all. In fact, from what I understand, and I did go to the scene, it was just a concrete block building
in North Nashville.
Over in North Nashville, big window on one side, and I just think they drove by and just shot into the building. I don't know if they ever saw anybody, but.
Do you have any other memorable trials during that period of time you'd like to talk about?
I have one other one that really bothered me. Lawyers generally try not to take their cases home with them. They try not to get personally involved. I got involved in a case, a middle-aged man and woman, boyfriend and girlfriend, neither of whom had ever been arrested for anything in their lives, found themselves charged with the aggravated rape and murder of the lady's 7 or 8-year-old niece. And
I believe her name was Joyce Watkins.
Joyce Watkins, right. The gentleman's name was Charlie Dunn. Just beautiful people. When I got involved in the case had already been tried to a jury. A jury had found both of them guilty and had sentenced them to life in the penitentiary. There had been a direct appeal, of course. The appellate court affirmed the convictions. Afterwards, the next step for them was to file a petition for post-conviction relief. I generally did not like doing post-conviction work simply because it requires you to basically critique and criticize the work of the trial lawyers.
Or the judge.
Right. Usually the trial lawyers. In this particular case, Ms. Watkins and Mr. Dunn had been represented by, in my opinion, excellent trial lawyers. Dave Vincent represented one of the parties, and Mr. Niles Nemo represented the other one. I really don't even remember which now, but I've known Mr. Vincent and Mr. Nemo for
both of them were very prominent defense lawyers in Nashville.
Yes, and very, very capable, competent lawyers. The case was heard on post-conviction. Judge Wyatt denied the request for post-conviction relief. The Court of Appeals reviewed it, and the Court of Appeals denied any relief. So Mr. Dunn and Ms. Watkins are now serving life sentences with no further opportunity for any kind of judicial review.
Of course, they at all points maintained their innocence.
Absolutely.
And I believe there was testimony later shown to be false or incorrect from the medical examiner.
Exactly. At the time of that trial, Dr. Charles Harlan was the medical examiner. His wife, Dr. Gretel Harlan, was an assistant in his office. And in this particular case, the autopsy of the young child was performed by Dr. Gretel Harlan. And apparently it was the first autopsy that she did on her own without the assistance of Dr. Charles Harlan. As part of the process, we were able to hire an expert witness, and it happened to be Dr. Chris Sperry, who at the time was the deputy medical examiner for Fulton County, Georgia, in Atlanta. And Dr. Sperry knew of the Harlans. He reviewed a transcript of Dr. Gretel Harlan's testimony, looked at medical slides that were made at the time of the autopsy. He opined that Dr. Harlan used the wrong methodology to date the injury, as well as the wrong terminology to describe the injury. And it was her timing of the injury that placed the child in the custody of Ms. Watkins and Mr. Dunn. The district attorney's office somewhat recently instituted a conviction review or post-conviction review team to go back and review cases where a conviction was maybe suspect or questionable. Fortunately, the review team reviewed this case of Ms. Watkins and Mr. Dunn. Unfortunately, before this happened, Mr. Dunn passed away from cancer while incarcerated within the Department of Correction. But the review team determined, and the district attorney's office agreed, that there was evidence that had not been presented to the jury. And the history behind that was it could not be presented because the witness with that information lived in the state of Kentucky and was not subject to subpoena, and she refused to come down to Nashville to testify. But the long story short is the judge granted the motion to set aside the verdict and Ms. Watkins was freed.
Finally,
Yeah.
a case of actual innocence.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, who was the judge that granted that? Do you know?
I think it was Judge Dalton, Judge Angelina Dalton, who her history as an attorney prior to going to the bench was in the district attorney's office. And I've known Judge Blackshire, Judge Dalton.
Her father was Julian Blackshire?
He was her uncle.
Her uncle.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she granted the state's motion, and obviously Miss Watkins would have joined in that motion to set aside the conviction.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How many years had she served in prison?
This case was tried before 1998. So I'm going to say she had served between 22 and 25 years.
Oh, wow.
In prison.
22 or 25 years of incarceration that you can never get back.
Never get that time.
But at least she's out now. So you practiced primarily as a criminal defense lawyer from 86 to 98. Let me just ask you this. What lawyers would you remember as having particular influence on you, maybe other colleagues in the public defender's office or just other lawyers in the community? Or who were some of the more prominent lawyers whose careers you followed during that time?
In addition to Carlton, Petway, there were several others. Mr. Jack Butler, who prominent attorney here in Nashville at the time, taught moot court at the National School of Law, YMCA Law School. And I just thought he was a fantastic trial lawyer. He was just very, very impressive, and I enjoyed seeing him and watching him.
I interviewed him, by the way, for this very same project about 12 years ago.
Just an absolutely wonderful, wonderful gentleman. Also, another moot court teacher at the law school that I got a chance to actually see and get to know after I became an attorney, got to know very well, was Mr. Tom Carlton.
Yes.
And he was with the law firm of Cornelius and Collins.
Yes.
And actually Cornelius, Collins, Higgins, and White. And I don't want to leave anybody out, but a phenomenal trial lawyer. I got to see he and one of his partners at the time, Tom Higgins, later became U.S. District Court judge over the federal court. But watching Mr. Carlton, Mr. Higgins, to me, that was just what trial lawyers were supposed to look like. And they had such an influence on me. Bill Leach, Mr. William Leach, who was Attorney General during the years that I clerked at the Attorney General's office, I've often said between Mr. Leach and Carlton Petway, other than my father, they were the two finest gentlemen I ever knew, because they were gentlemen.
They were
first and
foremost. On to your years as I'm going to call you a judge, although your title was, I guess, initially referee.
And then we became magistrate.
Essentially, a referee or magistrate at juvenile court is a judge.
The trial judge.
Yes, they have the very difficult tasks, many different tasks of either conducting trials of people under the age of 18 or conducting transfer hearings to determine if they should be tried as an adult or
we also had our dependency and neglect cases that could result in terminations of parental rights
or placement outside the home.
Exactly.
All kinds of difficult calls on disposition. So you served from, I believe, 1998 all the way to 2021 as a magistrate at juvenile court. And I want you to let me just ask you, how did you get that appointment, and did you want it? I mean, did you actively seek it, or just kind of come about?
Did not seek the appointment. In 1997, the legislature had created two new general sessions seats for Davidson County, and I had run for one of those two seats, finished second in a three-person race. And after that was over, I was back full-time at my practice, getting geared up to get back into practice full-time. I got a call from Betty Adams Green, who had been an assistant district attorney.
Yes.
She had run for and had successfully she had been elected juvenile court judge
in 1998.
1998. Yeah. By statute, the juvenile court judge, depending on the size of the county or the judicial district, can appoint magistrates to assist them with their workload. And Judge Green, Betty, she was a law school classmate of mine, called me and asked me if I would be interested in serving as a then referee magistrate at juvenile court. I had not given it any thought, but I thought it was a little intriguing. Thought I would do it for 3 or 4 years. And it, of course, turned into 23 years. But
had you done much, if any, work representing juveniles in any capacity, or representing
just a little,
maybe parents?
Just enough to sort of know how to find my way through.
So you came into the position pretty inexperienced, at least in that area of the law.
Yes.
And as we said, it is a very demanding undertaking. Not appreciated. I feel about
I think
many
you're
people.
right. I used to believe, and I've changed my thinking some, but I used to think, shouldn't do this job unless you actually have children of your own. What I found was we are often called upon to put broken families back together. And I don't know that we are equipped to do it very well, but that's the task that we have.
Well, what did you find the most heartbreaking or challenging part of your position there? I know you just see tragic situations.
We would see tragic situations. I had no idea at the time the enormity of mental health issues that juveniles were dealing with. It just was almost shocking to me. Next to that, the fact that so many juveniles were self-medicating with marijuana, maybe cocaine, to offset the side effects that they experienced from their prescribed psychotropic medication. So you've got youth with mental health issues as well as
who are self-medicating because for whatever reason the prescribed medications aren't working for them, or maybe they are working them, but they don't think they are.
They don't think they're working, or they don't realize that they can ask that their medication be adjusted, and just plethora of problems that families are dealing with. Quite often, very, very low end of socioeconomic scales, just a lot
and
of
early school dropout, or if not totally dropping out, very poor attendance at an early age.
Absolutely. Family trauma, you name it. And
the whole gamut of social problems is quite evident at juvenile court. I'd say even more than in adult court.
I think so. I think you're right.
And it requires for a judge or magistrate a tremendous understanding and indeed empathy with the juveniles in order to accomplish much. And even then, sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Doesn't work. Sometimes we're going to miss it.
Yeah. Well, do you have any particular, and I know the confidentiality at juvenile court prevents you from talking about particular cases, or at least except in general term. Are there any particular cases you can talk about without necessarily naming any names? That,
there were one or two. One in particular just was so very tragic. It involved a group of teenage boys who had all grown up together and had been friends. One of them got a gun, and they had unloaded the gun. They were pointing it and shooting at each other, dry firing. At some point the following day after they had been doing this, the gun got reloaded. One of the young men did not know the gun had been reloaded, pointed the gun at a friend. The gun went off and killed the friend. And, just tragic. A horrible tragedy. The mother of the young man who was tragically shot and killed could not accept the fact that it was an accident. She felt that there was this system-wide conspiracy to hide,
cover up
everything. She herself attempted to kill a family member of the young man who had accidentally shot and killed her son, and fortunately she was not successful, but unfortunately some year or so later her younger son died tragic death. And I think it was because she had not gotten her younger son into any kind of grief counseling or anything, and I think things just continued to build up, and then she lost both of her children.
Oh, what a horrible
to violence
sequence of events.
Just absolutely horrible. That one has always stayed with me.
Understandably.
It's just so tragic. But the other thing that I just absolutely remember about the time I was at juvenile court, and I always told people in juvenile court, if you need instant gratification, this is not the place to work. But years after I had had cases, I would have young people or even parents recognize me somewhere in the community and thank me for what we were able to do at juvenile
I'm sure
court. That was rewarding.
There are underreported, I would almost want to say, success stories. There are many kids who, if you looked at them and the things they were doing, and they were 15, 16, 17, would think that kid is either going to end up in prison for the rest of his life or under the grave.
And you're absolutely right.
And yet a good many of them turn out to be, if not bank presidents, at least contributing members of society.
You're right. I had a young man who was at juvenile court, apparently with a friend of his, and I think they were paying some cost or something, and I didn't recognize him. I mean, they were adults, and as I walked by, I was going outside or going down the hallway or whatever, and I heard this gentleman say to his friend, "That's Referee Lewis or Judge Lewis or whatever," and I didn't think anything about it, kept going. Well, 15, 20 minutes later, when I came back up the hallway, he stopped me and said, "Aren't you Judge Lewis?" And I said, "Yes, I am. How do you know me?" And he said, "You sent me to some juvenile facility when I was younger," and with a little blushing expression on his face, said, "But I deserved it." And he was able to laugh about it, and obviously things had worked out well.
Well, that's got to be a bright spot in your day. And I would imagine a lot of your former, not clients, but young people who you were required to adjudicate appreciate in later years what you did.
I hope
They
so.
might,
The thing about the work that I did at juvenile court, uh, I always tried to make, well, it wasn't a try. I always treated everyone with respect.
yes,
Children, parents, whomever,
yes,
victims, perpetrators. It was my experience that if people felt that they had been treated fairly by the judicial system, they could generally accept the outcome
yes,
of the case.
yes. If you had more power, I guess, what if any, of course, it all often gets back to a question of money and financial resources. What changes could you make to the way juvenile court is done? I am not criticizing the current judge Callaway or anything, but she, like any judge, is limited in terms of resources.
Yeah.
What in a perfect world could juvenile court do? Is that a question you can answer?
I can try.
Okay.
And I say it based on this. And you're right. Resources, so very important. Back in 1999 or 2000, I attended a juvenile conference in Portland, Oregon. And it was a joint conference between the Multnomah County Sheriff and Portland State University. One of the first things I heard on the first day of the conference was basically when a child goes into the foster care system in the state of Oregon, regardless of age, they remain in care until they turn 18 years of age. And I thought, my goodness, what kind of medieval system is this?
We had a minor technical difficulty, and the production was interrupted for a while. We are now ready to resume with Carlton Lewis. Carlton, you were talking about the way other cities and states have handled kids in foster care, and how a visit to Portland, Oregon, some years ago at a conference, you were briefly concerned greatly about how they were treating kids who were released from foster care once they turned 18. But the story has a very good outcome. So talk about that a little bit.
Fortunately, a good ending. When I got to Portland and on that first day of the conference, I was hearing that when kids go into foster care, they stay in foster care until their 18th birthday, which horrified me. And then on the last day of the conference, as these young people who had reached the age of 18 were coming out of custody, they were all either given full-time employment with the Multnomah County, which is Portland, the sheriff's office, or they were awarded 4-year scholarships to Portland State University. So all these kids coming out of foster care were being met with either full-time employment or an opportunity for further education, and it was the greatest thing for them in the world.
And that is great, and that is something that you wish Tennessee would initiate some way or other. Is that right?
Absolutely. Employment and education, solid employment, educational opportunities, two of the strongest pillars
yes.
in anybody's foundation. Yes. In our society today, without a good educational foundation, without marketable skills for the job market, young people just have very little, if any, chance at success.
Well, you serve very patiently and with a great deal of dignity for 23 or 4 years at juvenile court. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
But you are still involved, at least indirectly, in the juvenile court. Are you not a professor of juvenile law and procedure at the Nashville School of Law?
That is correct. I am. I've been fortunate enough to be on the faculty at Nashville School of Law, teaching a course in juvenile law and procedure for about the past 22 or 23 years.
Is that right?
And it's something that I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoy.
And you probably see some of your former students, or did see some of your former students in court before you retired.
I did. And I used to always try to lighten the mood. I never wanted them to be nervous practicing in front of me. And I would always tell everybody that most law students did well because of their professors. My students tended to do well in spite of their professor. And fortunately, and I'll just give a shameless but well-deserved plug to the Nashville School of Law. I think that school has always and continues to just do a phenomenal job of preparing lawyers to go into the courtroom.
Who is the dean of Nashville School of Law?
Yes, Dean William Koch.
Yes,
has been the dean. He has taught constitutional law there for many years and became dean upon the untimely passing of Dean and retired Judge Joe Loser.
Yes.
But Dean Koch, retired state Supreme Court justice.
Yes.
Just an absolutely phenomenal legal scholar, yes, and just a wonderful friend.
The Nashville School of Law is very fortunate to have him.
I think so. I really think so.
Okay. And you retired from your judging duties in 2021?
Correct.
Okay. And I want to backtrack a little bit. I believe that not long after you retired, your mother sadly passed away, and there was something of a coincidence with your retirement and her passing. Tell us about, if you don't mind taking a minute to talk about.
No, don't mind at all. I retired on August 27th or 28th of 2021, which marked 23 years. The following Monday was Labor Day, and my mother and I talked by phone quite regularly. Mm-hmm. And I tried to call her a couple of times that Monday.
Was she still living in Knoxville?
Still living in Knoxville, okay. And doing quite well. Finally, later on over in the evening, I think she called me back and we talked for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, just had a wonderful, wonderful phone conversation. And our plan was, of course, after I retired, she and I would do a little weekend day trips or weekend trips. So it was a little traveling, but we talked on Monday and things were great. And it was about 24 hours later, on Tuesday, I got a call that she had had a very, very serious stroke. And unfortunately, it was one that proved to be fatal. And it was a stinging pain, but it was one of those situations where, and I think all of my siblings felt the same way as I felt during her lifetime. We'd all had a marvelous, marvelous time and had done everything that we could to make sure that her life was a happy, comfortable life. So we really had no regrets. We just are able to appreciate and enjoy the fond memories.
You were able to spend some really good time with her just right before she had the stroke.
Yes, yes.
All right. Well, that's terrific. But speaking of family, you and Kenitha have now been married for...
It will be 42 years in September of this year.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And how many children, and are there any grandchildren?
Yes, 2 adult sons. Bradley is 36, will be 37 in July. Matthew is 33, will be 34 in October. Bradley is married to Amber, a Nashville lady, and they have 3 boys. Andre is 18, Malcolm is 7, and Elijah will be 4 in April.
Fantastic.
Of this year. Matthew and his wife Abby do not have any children yet. We're just hoping that is on the horizon, but as of yet, they do not have
But
children.
they're all in Nashville?
Now, Bradley and his family are in Jackson, Tennessee,
Okay.
2 hours to the west.
Gotcha. But
Matthew, they're close enough.
Yeah.
And Matthew and Abby are over in the Raleigh, North Carolina
Gotcha.
area.
Okay. All right. Carlton, you've now been practicing law or either or judging or practicing for close to 40 years. What changes would you want to comment on just about the way law is practiced, or about the conduct amongst lawyers and interacting with judges, for good or bad? You, I'm sure, had an occasion to note changes in the way lawyers interact with each other and the way they practice law. You want to comment about anything?
I will. When I started practicing, Paul, in 1986, many lawyers in Nashville, especially lawyers my age, our age, quite often their a father, a grandfather were also practicing attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a family pride and reputation to uphold.
Yes.
And lawyers were taught to treat their colleagues and to treat the court with the utmost respect.
Yes.
And there was a great amount of civility among lawyers. Lawyers could be on opposing sides of a case, and I'm personally aware of many situations where this happened, where two lawyers opposed each other in the courtroom, but enjoyed lunch that afternoon or enjoyed a cocktail together that evening. They were professionals and they did their work and they left it in the courtroom, and nothing interfered with their personal friendship or relationship. At some point, that began to change. And I think a lot of it had to do with advancing technology. Whereas you and I would pick up the phone and talk to each other personally, or we would meet in each other's office and sit down face to face and talk to each other. The advent of the internet and other forms of communication, I think while it was good in many respects, I think it took away the personal relationships that attorneys had built.
Yes.
And I began to see a breakdown in civility and just common courtesy.
Yes.
Those things left, and I hope they will return, because lawyers have a right to be seen as leaders in the community, but only if they act like leaders in the community. That's the one thing over the years that has troubled me, is a lack of, or a loss of civility.
Well, I would say that's true, but I also think it's partly a function of just age and experience. I think a lot of the lawyers who are not as civil as we like, once they get older and out there, will appreciate the importance of civility.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah, I probably could speak for certainly myself and a few others that maybe we're nicer to each other in our older age than we were when our younger, and maybe that'll be true regardless of the generation we're talking about. But I do agree in general, and the technology has changed the way law is practiced for better and for worse. And one way I notice it is all the technology has made providing discovery responses to cases much more involved and time consuming, and that delays the resolution of cases. Right. You've got all the cell phone, the text, the voicemails, the emails that may be extremely voluminous, but may or may not have any relevance ultimately to resolving the case, but still they have to be reviewed. Slows things down. And so anyway, just want to wrap up by asking you, what are you most proud of in your career as a lawyer and a judge?
I'm going to cheat just a little bit. I think it is peripherally connected. I think it was in 2014. I was recognized, or I received the Distinguished Faculty Award from the Nashville School of Law. And that just really, really meant so much to me simply because it was awarded based on peer review.
Oh, that's
it just meant
tremendous honor.
Yeah, because the faculty at Nashville School of Law is just, in my opinion, second to none.
It is a stellar faculty, and for them to recognize you above all the others is
that was just
quite something to be proud of.
Yeah, and I was.
Do you intend to retire from your teaching position? And if so, or if not, do you intend to take time off? Do you and your wife travel, or
we
like to take trips? Or
we like to take maybe long weekend trips. She has the overseas travel bug, and she's got a group of women friends that she'll travel with. I'm content to stay on the ground.
Gotcha.
But as far as teaching, I had thought about retiring from teaching when I retired from juvenile court. And then I thought about it. It's something that I just truly enjoy. It allows me to stay connected with the profession. I love interacting with law school students. So as long as they will have me, I'll continue to do it.
Well, I hope they will have you till you can just literally no longer do it physically and mentally, and that hopefully will not be for many years. How would you like most to be remembered by your colleagues?
If people were to remember me as being fair and honest in my dealings, I would be. Okay. I would think that would be the highest honor, and just to be thought of as being fair and honest.
And they will. All right.
I hope so.
Carlton Lewis, thank you so much.
Paul, I have enjoyed this so very much. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and been a pleasure reminiscing over the past 40 some years.
And thank you to the Nashville Bar Association for providing us a wonderful setting for the interview and for the recording equipment. And with that, we will call it a day, this 19th day of March, 2024. Thank you. All right.